This is a poorly painted 1930s Art Deco dresser, and I guess you could call it a barn find. You see, I found it listed for $100 on Facebook Marketplace, and when I was on the way to pick it up, the seller sent a message I was not expecting. You can pull down in front of the barn when you come in the driveway. This old dresser has a strange story, but first I'll let this discovery speak for itself. In this condition, I'm not so sure this dresser was worth $100, but by now you probably know that's part of my business model, to find the worst examples of old furniture pieces and try to bring them back to life. My name is Barry, and I'm glad you're here again. Today's video is going to be a special one, and what's inside this package plays a big role in the restoration. Any guesses what it might be? The seller stated this dresser had been in the barn for quite some time, and even she wasn't aware that the previous owner used automotive grease to lubricate the drawers. Now that this is back in my workshop, I was thinking, it's hard to believe that this $100 dresser, buried beneath thick layers of green paint, was once a proud piece of 1930s Art Deco design. At first glance, it looked forgotten, but I couldn't help but wonder what stories the wood grain might tell if given the chance to breathe again. I don't know much about the history of this dresser. Maker's marks from this era were often paper labels, so it's common for them to be missing. All that's visible is one simple stenciled number on the back, so I'll have to use other clues to begin narrowing my search. This is a 1930s Art Deco skyscraper pole. Not difficult to see where it got its name from. It has pressed metal wings, a ribbed center banding, and inset molded bakelite, often faux marble or swirled. This exact style of pole was used widely on mid-market Depression-era bedroom suites, sold through Sears, Montgomery Ward, and regional furniture stores. They weren't exclusive to a single cabinet maker. Instead, hardware suppliers like Keeler Brass Company out of Michigan, National Lock out of Illinois, and others manufactured these poles in huge numbers. Furniture companies then bought them in bulk and installed them on their own furniture. This paint job appears to be an older attempt at antiquing the finish with a glaze, so it's especially important to test the paint for lead. One design feature that drew me to this piece is the backsplash, or the crest piece, that was meant to echo the streamlined architectural look of the era. If compared to the way most modern-day furniture is built, I would say this old dresser is built well, but I haven't seen any signs that it was a high-end designer piece from the era. However, there are still subtle clues beginning to emerge that there could still be something beautiful underneath. There's no sponsorship for today's project. This video is just for your enjoyment, and I want to share with you why I chose this piece in particular. This project is a collaboration with some good friends of mine, a father and son team who share the same passion for old furniture that I do. I love the way they restore old furniture, often finding ways to reimagine forgotten pieces. I've had the pleasure of speaking to them several times, and it's a friendship I trust will continue to develop. I really think you'd enjoy their work. They're also restoring an Art Deco piece for this collaboration, so I'll link their video in the description. But for now, here's an idea of what you can expect.
Art Deco radios are huge. They're full of personality, and they're fascinating. Welcome to Montford Boulevard, and welcome to the era of Art Deco furniture. Our aim is to get in sync with the art and style of the Roaring 20s and the 1930s, and to tastefully upgrade vintage furniture.
It's common for the bottoms of these veneered side panels to feather like this. Luckily, all the pieces are intact, so I'll glue this back down on both sides. I'll use a thin palette knife to spread the glue evenly, and before clamping, I'll put down wax paper to keep the glue from drying to the board. I've stripped paint from old furniture many times, and this Clean Strip Premium Stripper is the best paint remover that I have found readily available. I'll spread this on with a chip brush and wait about 15 minutes until the paint begins to bubble. While I continue to wait for the paint remover to activate, I think I'll start working on these drawer pulls. I'm always hopeful that I can polish the original finish even on plated steel, so I first start by simply soaking these in warm water and dish detergent. This Scotch-Brite pad is slightly more aggressive than a dish rag, but I can already see that these pulls will not clean up the way I had hoped. What's left of the old finish is removed with ease. Most of the delicate Bakelite is cracked, but salvageable. These round pieces, however, are damaged, and I'm not sure how you go about repairing these. I'll keep them with the dresser, but won't likely use them. The paint is ready to be scraped, so I'll quickly spray on a thin coat of metallic guitar lacquer in the color Antique Gold. Depending on the type of paint, this is how it should peel off of most furniture, using a plastic scraper and a fine brass brush. However, I wasn't so lucky on other parts of this furniture piece, as you'll see. Sometimes, all of the paint comes off in the first pass. Other times, a second coat of paint stripper is required. This will depend on the products used, the climate you're working in, and how long you leave the paint remover on. These side panels required a second coat, but I found that a second coat is far more efficient than trying to scrape what still remains in an aggressive manner. That's when things get damaged. The hardware lacquer has dried quickly, so I can clear coat these with a glossy lacquer for brass. Although machined, take a look at this carved oval drawer front for the top drawer. It's yet another hallmark of Depression-era designs. Until I recently organized my tools in my workshop, I didn't remember having all these mini scrapers. With all the different sizes and shapes, these scrapers are now some of my favorite refinishing tools. There are better methods for removing the paint at this stage, so I'm not going to suggest that I use these mini scrapers on the entire dresser. These were just moments when I found them especially useful. After a second coat of paint remover, very little paint still remains. I'll scrub as much of the excess off as possible using No. 2 steel wool, then neutralize the stripper and clean the surface with this afterwash product. Mineral spirits would also work, but having used both many times, there's no question this afterwash is far superior and relatively affordable for around $8 a quart. These feathered veneer repairs are looking great, so I'll remove the clamps and wax paper and let this continue to dry. We can see the skyscraper design continue with this fluted, stepped backsplash. As was common for many innovative Art Deco furniture pieces, thin veneer was used in a variety of different wood species, creating bold contrasts. The species commonly used were walnut, maple, and mahogany. If it looks like the refinishing steps are out of order, that's because I'm showing you the exact order I'm working in. It's often more efficient to jump between tasks while waiting on other steps to dry or set. The veneered drawer fronts have had adequate time to dry, so I can begin sanding. I'll use a variety of hand sanding tools, as well as both the electric Surf Prep orbital sander and 3x4 sander. Most of the products and tools I use are usually listed in the video description, and many are affiliate links, so I do earn money from those sales, at no additional cost to you. But it's worth noting that those affiliate sales account for less than 5% of my income. I provide links and discount codes because I genuinely want others to benefit when purchasing these items, especially the Basecamp dust mask and Surf Prep sanders. There are several areas where this thick veneer has separated from the substrate beneath, so I'll apply superglue and spray on an accelerator to speed up the dry time. I wouldn't recommend sanding veneer with a power sander, especially a more aggressive orbital sander, but I already discovered a few veneer burns on this piece, and this dresser, for many reasons, is another opportunity to practice different skills and techniques. And by the way, I'll sand these dovetails for a fresh, clean look, but the green color from the paint, that's here to stay forever. Well, I don't know what to say about all this automotive grease. It was everywhere and proved to be difficult to remove. Do you have any suggestions for a product that may have made removing this easier? Notice all the paint still visible as I continue to sand the detailed areas on this dresser. Maybe there's a way, but I often feel it's near impossible to remove everything, or at least it's not practical for furniture pieces with little to no monetary or sentimental value. That doesn't mean I'm going to cut corners or not try my very best, but there comes a point when my time on a passion project like this needs to be managed appropriately. This is a fluted cross brace. I like this design feature, but not at the moment. This required a lot of effort to remove the paint, and although this work is often therapeutic, this section certainly tested my patience. There's a gap between the top of the dresser and the side panel, and that's because the top is cupping, likely due to exposure to moisture. I'm not sure how you'd fix this without tearing everything apart, so I'll do my best to clamp this down, then nail the top to the frame beneath. What are your thoughts? Do you think this will hold? I mean, it can't look any worse than the recently refinished Art Deco dresser that I dropped down a full flight of stairs. I like these vertical grooves on the corners, also known as fluted pilasters. They run the entire length of the dresser and were very common in mass market Art Deco furniture of the mid to late 1930s. We'll get a better look at them in a moment. Here's one discovery that made me curious, and perhaps you can help me. Can anyone identify the wood species used for this sheet of veneer on the top waterfall section of this dresser? Seeing these grain patterns come to life when applying the final finishes made this entire project worth every minute. I think these waterfall sections were steam pressed by machine from the factory. This is the most common area to burn through the veneer, so I'll sand this curved section gently with a 150 grit sanding sponge. Here's a better look at the veneer I'm trying to identify. It looks like two book-matched sheets of veneer. Speaking of that beautiful veneer, I'll mix up some light oak-colored epoxy filler to fill the 10 nail holes in the veneer that I'm responsible for. I'll spray this epoxy with some wax wash remover to keep it from drying too quickly, then spread it on with a palette knife. I should be able to conceal these later during the color matching. These are the vertical pilasters I was referring to earlier. I've sanded them using the sponge pad on the Surf Prep sander, but I'll complete the detailed sanding using these contour sanding blocks. I haven't mentioned it yet, but I'm sanding this entire dresser with 150 grit, then 180 grit sandpaper. I removed the bottom trim of this cross section, which made it easier to sand the fluted piece. Since this is solid wood, I was able to use the Dremel tool to expedite the process. Since this old dresser was a filthy barn find, I have no other choice than to sand both the outside and the inside of this piece. There's still more work to do, but look how much of a problem that grease has already caused. I haven't discovered any shortcuts for sanding furniture, and here's proof that it has in fact been completely sanded. I already know with the different wood species that this piece will have contrasting colors, and I decided I want to embrace that since I'll be keeping this dresser. I'd still like a base color, so I'll apply a light oil-based stain in the color Colonial Maple. This is the moment when panic can set in. After hours of sanding, the light-colored stain makes the piece look unfinished, almost dirty, especially on this maple section. But I trust the steps that will follow and continue to move forward. Now that the stain is dried, I'll spray on a few light coats of lacquer sealer. This will enable me to build up additional coats of color to help blend the entire dresser. I'll mix the sealer with a splash of blush retarder. This will slow down the dry time and allow moisture to escape. If the lacquer dries too quickly, moisture is trapped, leaving a cloudy finish. I've discussed in detail the tools that I use for spraying, but if this is the first video you've seen, I'll put it simply. I'm using a $25 HVLP sprayer with a 1.8mm tip. It's attached to a $400 air compressor, and the air pressure is regulated to 25 to 35 psi. These details should help others understand that this option is well within reach for most at-home DIYers. Now that I have a coat of sealer on, I can brush on some color to the damaged sections by mixing these powder stains with more lacquer sealer. This is one main reason why I chose this project in the first place. This is a skill I need to continue practicing using mass-produced, neglected furniture. Although it appears to be just the natural color of the stepped, fluted section of this crest piece, it's going to be a focal point for the entire dresser, so I'm attempting to make this a bit more uniform. During this first application, it's going to look like a mistake, but keep in mind, this will get sanded back and then be coated with color toner and a satin top coat. This repair is a 5-minute time lapse touching up one major veneer burn. I'll gently sand the first coat of sealer with a 320 grit sponge pad, Then clean the surface with wax wash remover just before spraying. For the second coat of sealer, I'll add a bit of color with this medium brown walnut dye stain. The amount doesn't matter much. The color will have a lot more to do with how thick you decide to spray this coat. Well, it's obvious by now that I film my work and add the voiceovers later. That approach helps me stay focused on my work in the shop. So as I'm editing this video, something just made me smile. You know how some creators create a hook by saying in the title or thumbnail, "Can I save this dresser?" Or "Is this piece too far gone?" Well, I realized that at this moment, my dresser is refinished, but I haven't put it back together yet. So honestly, I don't know how it's going to turn out. It may in fact be a surprise for both of us. Once restored, this dresser probably won't end up in a high-end resale shop. Right now, near-perfect Art Deco furniture is still fairly easy to find on Marketplace, and often at surprisingly affordable prices. For me, that's never been the point. These projects are intended to be practice pieces, to try new techniques and continue to improve my refinishing skills. Most of my income comes through ad placements and brand partnerships, which gives me the freedom to take on the kinds of challenging restorations that might not have much market value. I'm grateful for that opportunity because this platform has become more than just a business. It's also a creative outlet. There's something deeply fulfilling about pushing my own limits, testing my skills, and seeing if I can bring a neglected piece back to life, if I can make it just a little better than the way I found it. Don't forget to check out the incredible project that Matt and Tim did for this collaboration. I'll link their video in the description. My name is Barry, and as always, thank you for your love and support. Goodbye for now.